You're all going to die down here. Wait, that's the wrong Resident Evil movie. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Look, let's be honest. Hollywood's been trying to crack this egg for quite some time. The video game adaptation, and there have been varying degrees of it. Somehow we are in the seventh film, live-action film of Resident Evil, plus the animated stuff and all that good stuff. But this has been the franchise that has sort of continued on to varying degrees of quality and success over the years. I think the only things that have sort of been universally well received are the Sonic the Hedgehog film and the Detective Pikachu movie, which changed the bar a little bit when they're family fare. You can kind of get away with a little bit more, but they're also completely different than what the game is that they are sort of based on. I think the next one that sort of is holding that red flag, that flag like, hey, we got it, we figured it out, we figured it out. This whole challenge is Uncharted, but that remains to be seen. Here with Resident Evil, it is sort of a mixed bag. I will say for sure that from all the Resident Evil movies that we have seen so far, even though the bar is very low, this is one of the best. If not the best, it's definitely number two past the very first one with Mila. Without a doubt, just what you see on the screen, you can immediately tell that Johannes Roberts is a massive fan of Resident Evil. And that could be to a fault or it could be too much, but it is all there on the screen. Any Easter egg you can possibly think of from Resident Evil, the first two games, is in this. It's Easter egg upon Easter egg upon Easter egg upon Easter egg. It's a damn you can have Easter egg hunt if you're a Resident Evil fan with this. And that is what sort of is the great thing and the terrible thing about this film. If you're a Resident Evil fan like myself, you're gonna eat this bad boy up. This is the film that you've always been waiting on. This is Spencer Mansion, RPD, uh, police station extravaganza. This is where you wanted to be. Like, oh, this is what I always wanted. A recreation of what I wanted in that film. Um, and so you get that here in droves. The issue is that I don't know if he didn't think he was going to be able to do this again. He merges two games into one. But Resident Evil 1 in the Spencer Mansion and Resident Evil 2 with the police department into one movie. And so while all the characters are here, you get Leon, you get Claire, you get Jill, you get Chris, you get Wesker. They're all on the board. You don't get to spend any time with any of them really because you sort of merge two stories and splice them together to make this one narrative. And in doing so, the one one thing that you need these type of movies to have is to have a character that you, the audience, care enough about that if they were to die, if they were to leave, you feel something. And I don't have that with anybody in this movie. It is very much dependent on how I know these characters in the games, dependent on how I am supposed to care about them in this film. It's sort of similar to how Zack Snyder directed the first couple of his first couple of Batman vs Superman. Like these characters, because he expects the audience to already know that, and they come in with their own invested thing. There's nothing earned on the screen with the characters that are happening currently, and so we end up in this world where people are going through the motions, people are doing some cool things. You're getting a lighter, like a sequence that looks cool with a lighter going back and forth, and like in darkness and color, which is an ode to the game. But you don't care. Like I don't care if he lives or dies because I have not done anything in this uh, version of the film, in this version, to care enough about what happens to Chris, Jill, or any of them. They're all sort of playing caricatures or skins of what we know from the games, and that sort of leaves a little bit to be desired. So as a Resident Evil fan, I'm glad that I'm seeing all of this. Like this is the most faithful version of Resident Evil that I think we'll ever get in live action form. As a moviegoer, as a person who is a little bit more critical, this is a bad movie. And so I'm torn because part of me is like, this is cool to see all of this. And the other half of me is like, but I just wish that I had a better movie to do this with. The actors are all fine. I think Claire is probably the strongest just because she also gets the most screen time. I think the Claire Leon actors are better than the Chris Jill actors, but I think the setting and everything in the house is better. So it's a weird mismatch of what's good is over there and what's good is over there. But I think altogether the actors are fine. They do what they're supposed to do. They're serviceable. The horror doesn't really kick off in this. It doesn't really pay off here. Some of it is because this is from a franchise that is very dated, and so the stuff that they were doing and styles that they were doing, which gets recreated sometimes one to one, don't hold as much weight anymore because the audience has evolved. Like the Resident Evils now are doing stuff with like these crazy hick families in villages, which just feels different than this. So the dogs don't have as much weight. Also, when this stuff is practical, it works. When you're using practical effects and you have actual humans doing this stuff with like it, that feels more fearful. When you start using the CGI effects, this movie kind of starts showing its budget, and you can see that like, oh, this is like a made-for-TV film that just happens to got backing from Sony because it's a major franchise that they've made money off of before. There's a lot of times when the thread gets pulled, and you're like, oh, this has not been rendered correctly or finished, or CGI looks very rough, and it leaves a lot to be desired for a film that I think could mean more to people had there just been a little bit more financing put behind it. Look, let's be honest, we're in a treasure trove for Resident Evil right now. The games are killing it with the village and whatnot. You got an animated movie that's just been recently released, and animated stuff on Netflix. They're doing a live action TV series. Like, this is the pinnacle of a series that has been going on for so long that I think with all the versions of Resident Evil that you've gotten, fans can figure out which one of those is the one that they care the most about, and the one that sort of recreates is a one to one of what they want from Resident Evil. Some people enjoy that Mila run. I think the first one's good. I like parts of the second one, and from that point it just goes on and downhill. However, I was still at every one of those in the theater thinking that it might chase the dragon of what I was expecting at the end of Resident Evil 1, the movie where it shows like it pulls back and it shows the city being destroyed. It's like, oh, I'm going to get that, and then it becomes this Mad Max apocalyptic. Alice is the greatest hero of all time. This streamlines and pulls back on all that and just gives you the bare bones of that. And for the most part, as a Resident Evil fan film, this works. As a movie, yeah, leaves a little bit to be desired. So my scale of play it again, Sam, hey, I didn't mind that. Once is enough, or give me a time stone so I never have to think about this film again. Honestly, this is a hey, I didn't mind that. Because I'm very torn between how mediocre, middle of the road this film is, and how badass it is to see a live action version of Resident Evil. A lot of that stuff is my childhood. I remember going to the video game store, Babbage's, or I think it might have been EB Games at that point in time, getting the game, opening it up, cutting all the lights off. I was like, oh, I'm a grown up. I can do this. This is gonna be great. Pop it in, and them dogs jump through the window, and I cut everything off. Like, that's the terror that that game gave me. I never got one of those type of moments in this movie, and I think that is why, at the end of the day, while it all looks like Resident Evil, it just doesn't quite 100% feel like it. But I think this is the closest that we're ever going to get to that. But those are my thoughts on Resident Evil. Welcome to Raccoon City. What did you guys think about the movie? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere that plays podcasts. We're there. And I am pretty sure that we're going to be talking about this movie, because it is a sequel, reboot, remake, on there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.